Your convenience doesn't dictate your physiology. On this week's episode of the Exercise is Health podcast, we're explaining what that means and why it needs to matter to you. We're going to cue our introduction and dive right into this conversation. Hey, welcome back everybody to the Exercise is Health podcast, brought to you by Muscle Activation in Schaumburg. We're your hosts, Charlie.
And Julie.
And today we are exploring this topic of your convenience and your physiology, and how the former does not dictate the latter, no matter how much we would actually like it to. But what we want to let you know that if you want to start taking action on what we're talking about today, it's exactly what we can help you with at our studio, Muscle Activation Schaumburg, where we specialize in muscle activation techniques. So all you need to do to see our availability and get on our schedules, go to our website, www.matschaumburg.com, click the big green button that says Get Started, and you can schedule yourself for your initial MAT consultation and assessment. All right, so let's talk about this for a second, this idea of your convenience and your physiology. What we're talking about here is what you determine to fit for your life or your lifestyle, or what you think would be easy to do or anything like that. That actually does not dictate what your body physiologically needs in order to get stronger, in order to be healthier, in order to lose weight, in order to get in better physical conditioning. Whatever type of goal you are trying to accomplish with your exercise, your life conveniences, like what you feel like would be convenient for your life, is not the determining factor for that. Your physiology is the determining factor for your physiology, meaning like the current status of your body. And too often we get this confused, and so we need to talk about this because this will have a huge impact on how you think about your workouts and ultimately how you go implementing your workouts into your life.
That's right. So I think in my head, the easiest way for me to explain this is through a hypothetical example. So let's say, because this is what Charlie and I see in our practice all the time. Let's say we have a client named Jenny. I don't know. We have no Jennies that come here. So if you are a Jenny, you can be our first, but we don't have a Jenny here. But let's say she's coming in once a week. She's excited. She does some training. She does some MAT. And, this is a really, really big step for her because previously she was doing nothing. So to her, it's like, wow, this is amazing. And to us, we're like, wow, that's amazing. You've gotten started. And then after she has gotten started, after a little while, sometimes people will start feeling like, well, I'm not as strong as I think I should be getting. Or, we're not getting as far along with MAT as I would have hoped we would have gotten. And what's interesting is for Jenny, that frequency of coming in to do her structured exercise, maybe she's budgeted X amount of dollars to go towards this, exercise experience. All these convenient things, she can only come, not when there's a holiday. And then so every couple weeks she might miss a week or something like that. So what's happening is that once a week, most weeks, is what is convenient for her. But after a while, sometimes she might realize, wow, the results are happening, but maybe they're not happening quite as quickly as I thought, or I'm not getting enough, strength changes that I thought. And so what the difference here is that she's picking what's convenient for her, which is still amazing than what it was, but it's not at the level that is needed for her physiology. It's not the frequency that is needed to actually move the needle of her health. That might be more like 2 or 3 or 4 times a week. And so a lot of us, when we look through this lens of what am I doing for my health, and is that enough? We always want to defend what we're doing. Well, I walk 4 days a week. Why are you telling me I'm not strong enough, or whatever? But when we look at our life, we have to think, well, did I do that because it was convenient, or did I do that because that was required? That was the requirement to change my health. That was required to push my threshold up, right? And a lot of us, we don't ever go back and analyze this. And when you are able to do have that open mind and be schedule aside, budget aside, my expectations aside, what do I actually have to do to change my physiology, to change my health, to change my nervous system, to change my muscles, to change my strength, to change my bone density, whatever you're working on with your exercise, what is the necessary input needed It might be different than what you feel is convenient, but this separation, this gap is important to see so that you're able to start filling in that gap so that you really can start to make changes on your health where it's needed.
That's absolutely right, Julie. So a couple points about this. And I'm going to start with the story. One, I was having a client who was coming in twice a week, and she, it was 2 1-hour sessions, and with those 2-hour 1-hour sessions, like we were making consistent progress with her system with muscle activation techniques. But with the process that we work through, there's certain order that we go through when we're working through somebody's body. And there were specific areas of her body that she wanted to get to that we hadn't been able to get to time-wise. Even though her frequency and her consistency were really high, just time-wise, like in a 55-minute session, we were just running out of time where we weren't able to get there. And so what we did was, instead of having 2 1-hour sessions, we started combining and making 1 2-hour session. And she would come in for the 2 hours. So for her, like, it was the same cost. It was the same overall time commitment, but it was just kind of like one chunk of time as opposed to 2 separate times. And because we had that extended time together, we could get through so much more of her body. And when we were able to do that on a consistent basis, all of a sudden, all these little things that were just like a little bit nagging before, they just went away. Like, they were just totally taken care of. And so it was just switching what seemed like convenient, of okay, yeah, I can come for an hour, I'll be here a couple times a week, into what her body was actually needing was more exposure. She was needing, more volume with it, in terms of one period of volume, as opposed to, it kind of sprinkled out throughout the week. And with that, she all of a sudden cracked into these new levels of just, making progress leaps and bounds. And we see this with strength training as well, where when somebody goes from not doing anything or doing something very, very inconsistently or infrequently to starting on a consistent, once a week schedule with their strength training, they start to see improvement. But then your body adapts. And you can push yourself more and more in that session, but eventually you're just going to need more exposure. You're just going to need more frequency. And you see this with people as when they're kind of starting to get back into it, or when they're first starting off, and they'll go from once a week, and then all of a sudden they're just kind of maintaining because the exposure is just not frequent enough, and then they go to twice a week, and all of a sudden, boom, now all of a sudden they're doing way better. You also see it with people who for years have been really, really, really consistent. And they've been, a consistent, 2, 3, maybe 4 times a week they're lifting, whether, it's with us or on their own. But their body has just grown accustomed to that. And then they need a period of, we have to go more intensely. We have to do more volume in order to break through into that next plateau, into that next level. And it may not be how you have structured your week to be for all these years. Like, what you're currently doing may feel like what is convenient. But the truth of the matter is, your body doesn't care about what's convenient for its schedule. It cares about surviving and adapting to whatever stimuli are being placed upon it. And so, if number 1 is taking care of survival, and number 2, the stimuli is very consistent, well, it doesn't have a reason to keep trying to adapt, because there's no new stimuli coming in towards it. It's like, I got this. I got twice a week. I got 3 times. I'm good. I can maintain. And people are really good at maintaining their levels of strength when they stay on that kind of that 2 to 3 times a week, really consistent with their strength training. But in order to be able to progress it, in order to be able to build upon it, in order to be able to kind of take things to that next level, oftentimes it does require increasing the volume, increasing the frequency, increasing the intensity, because your body just needs a new level of stimulus.
You're totally right, Charlie. And it's really a good way to think about this, because when we're thinking about exercise, we do want to be thinking about progressing, right? If you're not progressing it, then you're probably getting a bit weaker. And so, another really good example of this is, I had a client that started in on one of our programs, and she was coming in for 12 weeks, 1.5 hours every week. And at the end of those 12 weeks, she was like, Julie, I think I need to come way more frequently. And I said, I think you do too. If you really want to like not just get out of pain, but actually start getting stronger, we're going to have to meet more frequently. So now she comes 3.5 hours a week. And with that frequency, we're able to have enough exposure to her body that she's progressing, and she's working out outside of our sessions also. But we definitely wouldn't have been able to do that day one. I remember day one thinking, wow, like we really need to progress this from like the foundation, even though she had worked out, 12 years prior, but she hadn't worked out for a good long chunk. So really looking at, am I doing this because it's convenient, or am I doing this because it's actually moving the needle and it's actually changing my physiology? And that is a tough place to be. And I'm not saying like you have to jump on it right away, but just to see that discrepancy, because a lot of us think like, we want to defend our actions. And I think everyone's actions towards their health are commendable, but still it might not be enough. And to see that will help you not get frustrated and get into a hole where you're like, well, I've been doing all these things for so many years, but never once did we step back and say, well, was it enough to actually change your body? Or were you still slowly getting worse because what you were doing to change your body was actually low enough that you were actually still getting deconditioned to match that stimulus?
Julie, it's a really important concept. This idea of like what you are doing is good. We're not knocking what you're doing, but it may not be enough. And to be able to like internalize and balance both of those ideas, both of those statements are true. Like what you are doing is good, but it's also not enough. And so if you want to be able to get more from your body, more strength, more muscle, better fitness, whatever it is, then what you're doing is good, but it may also not be enough. And so both of those things can be true. And so we want to encourage you that you just may need to start doing more. And that's totally cool. I would say most people fall into that category of we need to be doing more. And not even from the fact of like, well, most people aren't doing anything, but most people who are doing something in all likelihood need to be doing more in order to get to the places where they are wanting to go. And that's okay. Well, like I said, the majority of people are in that boat, and there's nothing wrong with being in that boat as long as you recognize that you are in that boat and you are willing to start taking action to start doing more. Or you just say, okay, well, where I'm at right now is good enough, and I'm just going to stay, with what is convenient for me, and that's completely fine too. Again, this idea of like, hey, what you're doing is good, but it's not enough, and so you get to choose. That's the kind of beauty of it all, is you get to choose which you want to go for. But we want to encourage you that if you're feeling stuck with your workouts, if you're feeling like your body's not progressing as much or as quickly as you would like it to, is likely because what you are doing is good, but it's just simply not enough. And so start doing some more, whether that is more frequency, more volume, more intensity. And we have seen across the board that when people start implementing that mindset with their workouts, they notice that, okay, I'm able to break through whatever plateaus that I'm on. I'm able to start seeing the gains in strength, in muscle, in fitness that I was hoping for. And those kind of results come much more quickly than what I was getting before. So again, just some words of encouragement for you, just a kind of reframe of how you may be thinking about your workouts. Again, your workouts may be convenient for your life, but it doesn't mean that physiologically this is what your body actually needs in order to get the results that you want. And understand that if you truly want to get those results, you need to be focused on physiologically what your body needs, not what is convenient for your life. So if you'd like to start taking action on what we're talking about today, it's exactly what we can help you with at our studio, Muscle Activation Schaumburg, where we specialize in muscle activation techniques. So all you need to do to see our availability and get on our schedule is go to our website, www.matschaumburg.com. Click the big green button that says Get Started, and you can schedule yourself for your initial MAT consultation and assessment. Well, thank you so much for your time and attention, everybody. We always appreciate you giving that to us every single week, whether it's your eyes on YouTube, your ears on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, wherever you consume our content. If you wouldn't mind leaving us a rating and review, it always means the world to us when you do. We're wishing you a fantastic week, and we'll talk with you all next week.
This podcast is for information purposes only. The statements and views on this podcast are not medical advice. This podcast, including Julie and Charlie Gates, disclaim responsibility for any possible adverse effects from the use of information contained herein. Opinions of guests are their own, and this podcast does not endorse or accept responsibility for statements made by guests. This podcast does not make any representations or warranties about guest qualifications or credibility. This podcast may contain paid endorsements or advertisements for products or services. Individuals on this podcast may have a direct or indirect financial interest in products or services referred to herein. If you think you have a medical issue, consult a licensed physician.